All Things Mavs.
And they'll reset. Nowitzki again for the lead. Bang!
Maverick fans, what's going on? You're tuned into the All Things Mavs Podcast. I'm your host, Jimmy Crowther, as always, breaking down anything new going around the Mavs Nation. And today, I'm doing a little bit of a Q&A. I'm also going to break down a little bit of news and some NBA Power Rankings from ESPN. So whether you're tuned into YouTube or you're tuned in on the podcast, wherever you listen, from Google Podcast, Apple Podcasts, Breaker, Stitcher, Overcast, Spotify, wherever you listen to your podcast, I thank you guys for listening, commenting, subscribing, leaving some reviews for us. I really appreciate it. My YouTube channel is continuing to grow every single day. If you go to youtube.com/allthingsmavs and subscribe, help me get to 4,000 subscribers. It would mean the world. You can check out all my latest videos there. But let's go ahead and dive right into today's podcast. Start off with some power rankings from ESPN and who they've got the top teams as in the bubble. Now, I was a little surprised where they put our Mavs. They put us at number 10, and that was actually better than I expected. They've got the Milwaukee Bucks at number 1. Of course, I don't disagree with that at all. I think they are by far the best regular season team, followed by the Los Angeles Clippers and the Los Angeles Lakers, both of which are definitely deserve to be up there. Right now, I'd honestly put the Lakers above the Clippers just because we've seen more of them in the regular season, but hey, to each their own. Now also, if Dwight Howard, that is the biggest question from ESPN, if Dwight Howard opts out of Orlando, that definitely changes some things. But I'm going to still take LeBron and Anthony Davis over Kawhi and PG. At number 4, the defending champion Toronto Raptors come in at 4. I didn't think they had a chance to make any noise in the NBA this season, but here we are, the end of the year, and they're still the number 2 team in the Eastern Conference. I'm very interested to see how they come around in the playoffs because it's not like they have one go-to guy. Of course, Pascal Siakam is their guy. Kyle Lowry is their veteran leader. And they've got guys like Serge Ibaka, OG Anunoby. Of course, Norman Powell has been great off the bench for them. Fred VanVleet, of course, is also absolutely incredible. And we'll be interested to see how far they go in the playoffs. Houston comes in at number 5. Whatever. I'm not that high on Houston. I'd have them closer to 6 or 7. At 6, the Boston Celtics, followed by, and here's where things get interesting, I believe, and I think some things could switch up when everything's said and done. Philadelphia at 7, Denver at 8, Miami at 9, and then you got our Mavs at 10. Here's the deal. I'd put Miami higher. I think Miami has been super impressive this year. I love what I've seen from Dragic and Jimmy Butler, Kendrick Nunn, Tyler Hero, Bam Adebayo especially. I'd put Miami a little bit higher. In fact, I'd flip them with Philly because Philly doesn't impress me, and they don't scare me in the postseason either. I mean, Ben Simmons is a great player, but I don't trust him leading my team in the playoffs. Joel Embiid, same thing. Great player. I don't want him as my go-to guy. And then Al Horford really hasn't done much at all for this team, so not sure I'd have them that high. Denver's great. The thing is, we don't know how this new Jokic is going to look. We know he's been diagnosed positive with COVID-19, but that's not going to change the fact that he plays. This skinnier, slimmed down Jokic is incredible. I think it's going to help him in the long run. But does that affect his back to the basket game? Does that affect how he bullies players down low? I'm not 100% sure, but I think Denver at 8 is probably fair enough. But then you got the Mavs at 10. Their biggest question, because this power ranking also came with the biggest questions ESPN had for each team. ESPN's biggest question was, can Doncic and Porzingis pick up where they left off? And Tim McMahon wrote this little piece. The top priority all season for the Mavs, who are a win away from accomplishing their preseason goal of making the playoffs, has been to tap into the potential of the partnership between Luka Doncic and Kristaps Porzingis. The Mavs' young franchise cornerstones didn't click immediately, but Dallas has averaged 117.4 points per 100 possessions, which is significantly higher than its league best overall rating. In 307 minutes with that duo on the floor since Porzingis shifted to center in a full-time basis in late January. With Doncic healed from some nagging injuries, there's a lot of excitement about watching the stars continuing to grow together. That's my biggest question too. I mean, I think that's fair enough, is they came in hot. Porzingis was clicking late at the end of the year, and then Luka went down with some injuries. So if those two can get back, especially where KP was later half of the season, this team will be higher than number 10 when the power rankings are all said and done. Once the playoffs roll around, I think this team could climb as high as 5 or 6, as low as I could see us falling, 12 or 13, but I think 10 is fair enough. So that's your top 10. I don't want to get into the guys below them. I mean, you got Utah, OKC, and Indiana as 11, 12, and 13, but Dallas is in a pretty position. Everyone's healthy. They're coming back. They've got some time, so really excited to see. I think 10 is a pretty good spot for the Mavs in these new ESPN Power Rankings. Now, recently, we also got the preseason schedule for the Mavs. I say preseason, I guess, in quotes here because we don't really know. It's not really a preseason. It's just scrimmage games. But they've got 3 games leading up to the 8 regular season games that they'll have in Orlando. And the first one's going to be on July 23rd against LeBron James and the Los Angeles Lakers. Of course, you always want to play the best of the best, and it's technically not going to count for anything. So we'll probably see LeBron and Luka and AD and KP in those first 10 minutes, maybe the first quarter, and then everyone will sit out, I'm assuming, to, make sure everyone stays safe and healthy. Then the next day they'll have off, and then July 25th they'll go up against the Indiana Pacers, and then they'll have a few more days off, and July 28th it'll be the return of Ryan Broekhoff, and they will face the Philadelphia 76ers. So those are all preseason. They're not going to count for anything. I think you get 3 really high-quality competition teams. Indiana maybe not as much anymore that Oladipo is out, but still a solid team with Malcolm Brogdon, Miles Turner, Domantas Sabonis. TJ Warren's a good player for them. Even, the youngest Holiday, Aaron Holiday, is a good point guard too. So 2 high-caliber teams in the Lakers and the Sixers, and then another good team in the Indiana Pacers to get them prepared and ready to go for the regular season in Orlando. So that's the preseason schedule. If you guys are watching here on YouTube, I want you to predict what they'll go for. 3-0, 2-1, 1-3, 0-3. Predict that preseason record for me in the comment section below. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts, you can tweet it at me if you want to. If you're listening on Spotify, whatever it may be. But I just love, that's my favorite thing about this podcast and favorite thing with you guys is that I can interact, especially on YouTube. YouTube is the easiest place to do it, but I do it on Twitter all the time. I mean, you guys, most of you are listening because you follow me on Twitter. Continue, doing that. I appreciate it. I appreciate all the love from you guys. Please don't stop. It really, really means the world to me to be able to do that with you on a consistent basis. So we'll keep it moving here, and we'll get into our Q&A section. So first question comes from Edmund the Slayer, which is also better known as Donnie Nelson's burner account on Twitter. He said, who are the 2020 free agents to target, assuming Tim Hardaway Jr. opts in? Well, if he opts in, and let's say Cauley Stein opts out, you've got the mid-level exception to play with plus a couple million. Now, the cap is going to be completely, who knows with everything going on right now, but I put out 5 names. I've got 5 names here on this little sheet that I've talked about that I want to touch on and I think could make sense for the Mavs. Starting out with Justin Holiday of the Indiana Pacers. Holiday has had his best 3-point shooting year of his career this season with the Pacers at 42.4%. Now he's taking 4 per game, which is less than his career high per game, but still, if you're a 42% shooter, shooting 4 per game is absolutely perfect. I like Holiday a lot too because really, I mean, the best thing about his game for the Mavs is that he's defensive minded. Now, 3-point shooting, he's great at, but he is a good defender. He's an upgrade defensively from Tim Hardaway Jr., but that's a guy that can come off the bench, change of pace for you. He's playing behind THJ and probably not going for much more than the mid-level because he is 30 years old, so nobody's going to be signing him to a long-term deal, but 65 games with the Pacers this year, averaging 8.4 points per game, just 1 assist, 3 boards, 1 steal per game, and then that 42% from 3. So outside of his shooting and his defense, I mean, you're signing him because he's a 3-and-D player. He's not like going to make versatile plays for you, so don't get too hung up on that. But Justin Holiday is a name to absolutely watch out for this offseason on the Mavs radar. I like him a lot. Another guy, Mo Harkless. Now, Harkless was a guy who, at the trade deadline, I think we all thought, oh, the Knicks might buy him out. He got traded to New York. New York doesn't need him, and he'd come to Dallas. But never happened. He decided to stick it out with New York, played in 12 games before the shutdown happened. And he put up, with New York, I guess I'll go ahead and negate those stats, and we'll talk about his stats as a whole. Now, the thing is, he's still 26 years old, so the guy is still super, super young. This year, between the Clippers and the Knicks, he averaged 23 minutes per game. He was putting up nearly 6 points, good rebounder at 4 boards per game, 1 assist. And again, this is another guy who comes in and he's a 3 and D player. Now, 34.7%, not great. He doesn't take a ton of threes, but he's a good shooter and he's a good defender and he can get to the basket and score. So a guy who's going to be cheap, he's going to come for probably the mid-level exception, maybe a little bit more. But, his days in Portland, when you look at what he did, I believe that was with Portland back in 2016, 2017 were his best years. He's a double-digit scorer at 10 points per game and 4 boards, and a pretty good shooter, too, at 35.1%. So I believe in Mo Harkless. I don't like that he's stuck in New York because he's not going to do anything there, but maybe that's good for Dallas, that he's been hiding out in that dumpster fire of New York, and he can come to Dallas on a cheaper deal in free agency. So keep an eye out on that one. Another guy, a bigger man, but I still wouldn't call him a big. I know some of you guys really want bigs, but I'm not saying that should be our top priority in free agency if we only have a limited amount of money to play with. Dario Saric could make some sense. Again, another European guy. Hasn't really gotten a chance to shine since he was drafted 12th overall back in 2014. He's with Philly in his early days. His second year, he averaged 15 points per game, had a pretty good showing, but then goes to Minnesota, and then now with Phoenix this year. And he's had a bit of a down year, I guess, compared to what he did in Minnesota, but playing more minutes, his field goal percentage is up, and his three-point percentage is down. Now, as a whole this year, the thing with Dario Saric is he's not a defender. You're not going to bring him in and ask him to defend another power forward, another center. You're not going to ask him to play, great defense. You're going to ask him to come in and be a stretch 4 or a playmaking 4 at that. Maybe even, he can put the ball on the floor like a 3. He's just not fast enough to be a 3. But this year with Phoenix, he's put up 10 points per game, which is respectable, and 6 rebounds. Pretty good, pretty close to a double-double every single night. I would like to see that three-point percentage come up, but he's going to be restricted. So that's the only reason I kind of have hesitations on Dario Saric. However, I don't think he's going to be that expensive. Now, the thing is, he's 25 years old. So some team could give him a few years of guaranteed money, and maybe the Mavs don't want to do that. I wouldn't blame them. Now, the last two guys are guys that I'm very keen on. Jae Crowder especially, because I think this would be the year to bring him back. Because he's a guy who, excuse me as I take a sip of my Sonic drink, he's a guy who's career-wise, like his percentage hasn't been good as a three-point shooter, but I believe Mavs Draft, at Mavs Draft on Twitter, which is, by the way, one of the absolute best follows for all things draft coverage, has just been absolutely killing it. I mean, he has killed it with the draft stuff, but he talked about Jae Crowder pretty recently here, and he was just saying, like, his three-point percentage doesn't tell the whole story, but teams, this is exactly what he said, teams close very hard on him, and his shooting threat helps spacing a ton. More than just makes and misses, being able to shoot 5+ threes a game is a skill, and he's absolutely right. I mean, Crowder this year as a whole has been attempting about 6 threes per game, and he's knocking down, he's putting up, again, 6 threes per game and averaging 39% from 3. So Crowder, I really think, could be a Dallas Maverick again this offseason. He's been in Miami. If he goes for the mid-level or maybe a little bit more, I think Dallas could and should definitely take a swing on him. He can guard some 4s, but he's better suited guarding 3s, and I would love him back in a Mavericks uniform. Give me that number 99, Jae Crowder, once again. So that's the fourth guy. And the final guy, a bit of a stretch here, but I think the Mavs have a shot at Goran Dragic. Now, do we need Goran Dragic? No, absolutely not. We have a lot of point guards on the roster. But if Dragic becomes available and nobody's going to pay him big money because he's 33, about to be 34 years old. He is 34 years old, excuse me. Dallas could take a swing. Maybe he says, I want to team up with Luka Doncic. I want to play with my Slovenian brother. I want to be there for him. And he takes less money, and he comes to Dallas, and he plays that backup point guard role and really does what JJ Barea does right now as the veteran leader in that point guard depth. But JJ, maybe he retires, maybe he doesn't come back, and Dragic comes back. Now, I don't think it's likely, but I think it's a guy to keep an eye on if he falls through the cracks of free agency. Because this year, I mean, he's been incredible for the Miami Heat in that 6-man role. 16 points per game, 5 assists, 3 boards, shooting 38% from 3. Give me Goran Dragic all day long. He was almost a Dallas Maverick this past summer. We all remember that big debacle where Mavs thought they were getting Goran Dragic, but then they were actually getting Kelly Olynyk and Derrick Jones Jr., and then nobody was getting anything, and the trade never went through. But I think Dragic this summer could very well be a Dallas Maverick if he decides he wants to take less money. Now, if he wants to go out and get 8-10 million, I can't blame the guy. This is his last chance for a big payday. But if he wants less money, if he wants to play in a winning situation, and he doesn't want to be in Miami anymore, Dallas could be the spot, and I would not be mad about that. Another question here comes from at Miles_Charney. I hope I didn't butcher that name. Miles Charney on Twitter asks, who is the best first round matchup? Well, lucky for you, I put out an entire video on a good first round matchup for the Dallas Mavericks, and I believe it's the Houston Rockets. I think if the Mavs can go up against the Rockets, they're going to be looking really good because this team doesn't have the size to go up against the Dallas Mavericks. I mean, they got Tyson Chandler, who's 7 feet tall. But Tyson Chandler isn't going to be playing meaningful minutes in Orlando. He's not going to be playing meaningful minutes in the playoffs anymore. I mean, love the guy. Love Tyson Chandler. I always will. He's always going to be a Dallas Maverick in my heart. But there's just no reason for Tyson Chandler to be playing meaningful minutes, and he's not going to be stopping Kristaps Porzingis. After that, the next tallest guy is Bruno Caboclo. Now, their starting center is 6'5". It's PJ Tucker. But then you look at Jeff Green, Robert Covington, Daniel House Jr. Those are the next tallest guys. So I think Houston would be an ideal matchup because Dallas cooked them once with KP and Luka. And then the next game, they didn't have Luka, and they only lost by 7, and KP went off for 35 points. So this is a team that I think Dallas could exploit on the offensive and defensive end, a team that Luka and KP could absolutely gel against. And really, we could see that dynamic duo play out at its highest potential against the Houston Rockets. Now, a follow-up question to that comes from Krishna, actually on YouTube, and he asked basically, how far will the Mavs go in the playoffs, and who do you think the finals teams will be? Well, it all depends, because if the Mavs go up against the Clippers in the first round, like as they are currently projected to do, I hate to say it, but I think it's a first-round exit. I also did a video on that as the one team the Mavs need to avoid in the first round as the Clippers. I just don't like the matchup at all. Don't want to go up against PG and Kawhi because we don't have the wings to answer that. So if that's the case, I think it's a first-round exit in about 5 or 6 games. Now, let's say we get Houston in the first round, or let's say we get maybe Utah in the first round, or maybe Denver. I think those are all very beatable teams for the Dallas Mavericks. And OKC as well. I just don't think we'll end up facing Oklahoma City. But I think any team not named the Clippers and not named the Lakers could go 7 games and could be a Dallas Maverick win. And if that's the case, I'm happy. I don't think this team gets past the second round. I hate to say it. I guess it, again, depends on who we play in the second round. But let's say right now we're the 7th seed and the Clippers are the 2 seed. Then we go up against Houston or Denver, but I just don't think we get past the Clippers. Now, this is all very scenario-based. You know, we could get the Lakers in the second round. We could get the Clippers in the second round. Maybe we get lucky. We get, somebody else. But it's likely that if we make it past the first round, we see one of the LA teams in the second round, and I don't think we get out of that. But that's okay. This team is young. We have a lot of growing to do. And we should be happy with where we're at with this team because nobody, and I mean nobody, expected us to be really this good. I know we're the 7th seed, but we have potential to be a 4 seed, as high as a 4 seed in the playoffs. So I'm happy with being a second round exit. Of course, I want to go further. Do I want to go further? Yes. I want to win the NBA Finals every single year. But if we can get this team and this Luka Doncic and Kristaps Porzingis young duo to the second round, that means a lot. That gets a lot of valuable playoff experience for 2 young guys. So with that being said, my finals prediction, it's very predictable. It's very safe. I get that. It's not the sexy pick. But I think it's Milwaukee and the Lakers. I think playoff LeBron is going to kind of take over a little bit. I think he's out on a mission. I think they're better than the Clippers in a 7-game series. I truly do. I don't think the Clippers have an answer for Anthony Davis. Even if they can stop LeBron, I don't think anyone's going to give an answer for AD. Meanwhile, the Lakers have a ton of wings, an abundance of wings to be able to guard Kawhi and PG. They got KCP, Danny Green, LeBron, of course. All that they can play on either of those guys. So I think it's going to be the Milwaukee Bucks and the Los Angeles Lakers in the NBA Finals. I would love to see Giannis win. I want Giannis to win a championship, but also long-term thought here, galaxy brain coming in. If Giannis can't make it to the finals and he can't win the finals, does that open up a door for the Dallas Mavericks to be players in 2021? Maybe. And maybe I'm crazy. Maybe I'm just out of my mind, sitting here in my room, talking nuts and bolts. But maybe, just maybe, we don't want the Bucks to win the finals. Maybe, just maybe, we don't want the Bucks to even make the finals so that Giannis is upset. He wants to go to a winning culture, a.k.a. the Dallas Mavericks. All right, moving on. Anyway, final question here, and then we'll wrap it all up. Dustin Ivey on YouTube asked me, who do I think will be the Mav to go to another level in the playoffs, / who do I hope for it to be? Obviously, I hope and I do think Luka Doncic is going to another level. He's played in the Euro Cup. He's won EuroLeague MVP. We've seen him in advanced stages of high-level competition, and he's dominated it before. I think he can do it in the NBA playoffs too. It's a different game, I get that, but love for it to be Luka Doncic. I also think Seth Curry could be a guy to watch out. Now, I'm not going to mention KP here because KP hasn't been in a playoff situation. We haven't seen him play like that for the Knicks. So I'm not expecting KP to go to another level in the playoffs. I think KP needs to play exactly how he played later in the season. Another guy, Seth Curry. Now, Seth Curry's got playoff experience. He was with the Portland Trailblazers last year, but this will be a year where really he's asked to shoulder a bigger load than he did in Portland in the playoffs. And I think he'll live up to that, and I think he'll be huge for the Mavs come playoff time. Now, the final guy, and another guy that I really hope for, is DeLon Wright. Because DeLon Wright has had probably the most valuable playoff experience out of any of the new Mavericks. Now, JJ Barea, of course, 2011 NBA Finals, nothing can top that. But among the newer Mavericks, DeLon Wright's probably got the best playoff experience in his time with Toronto back in, 2018? Yeah. Because that year he played a huge role off the bench. In fact, he was their lead guy off the bench. And he had 2 18-point games, one of which was a win. Actually, both of them were wins over the Washington Wizards at the time. Both games, one game he went 3 of 4 from 3. The other game he went 2 of 2. He also had a 10-point game. And he was just a menace on defense, I remember, in that playoff series. So I'm hoping we get a next level DeLon Wright type playoff run this season. I think it would mean a lot. I think a lot of people expected him to come in and be the starter right away. And that wasn't the case. And there were some nights where Rick barely played him, and it was frustrating for Mavs fans and for DeLon Wright as well. But he's got a chance to really prove himself in these playoffs, especially if they go up against a team with a incredible point guard. Let's say they play the Thunder and they got to go against Chris Paul. I'm sticking DeLon Wright on. Let's say they go against the Utah Jazz. They got to guard Donovan Mitchell. Put DeLon Wright on him. Maybe they got to go against the Nuggets. Jamal Murray. Stick DeLon Wright on him. Maybe they face the Rockets. Russell Westbrook and James Harden. Put DeLon Wright on one of those two guys because that's going to mean a lot. So I think DeLon Wright's defense and hopefully his three-point shooting is really takes a next step in these NBA playoffs. But overall, I think the main guy to watch out for in those playoffs is Luka Doncic. I mean, EuroLeague MVP. He's probably the most experienced second-year player we've ever seen in the NBA. Now he's got a chance to really prove something in his second year. So I'm really excited for that. I'm excited for everything to return. I'm excited for basketball to be back. I cannot wait another minute for Mavs basketball, but it's coming soon. It's coming very, very soon. So, Mavs fans, I appreciate you tuning in to this episode of the All Things Mavs podcast. I'm hoping to put out another one here pretty soon. I'm actually going to be back in the Chat Sports offices on July 16th. I've been working remotely, but looking to get back in the physical office on July 16th. So more videos and more podcasts are coming your way very, very soon. As always, go subscribe to that All Things Mavs YouTube channel. Go subscribe to our main Chat Sports channel and hit me up on Anchor. Subscribe to me on Apple Podcast, Breaker, Google Podcast, Overcast, Pocket Cast, Radio Public, Spotify, wherever you listen to podcasts. Guys, thank you so much, and I'll talk to you soon.
Got it.